Okay, yes, thank you. So as Gilles said, yes, been working on a geoenvironmental inventory of eolian deposits in eastern Canada. The project has been going now for 2 years. Doesn't have quite the sort of long-term development that the last two projects has. We started from the ground level 2 years ago to develop the project and the inventory. There we go. I'm going to repeat the abstract because I think it's important. The eolian deposits, which are windblown deposits essentially, are widespread, but they're poorly documented throughout northeastern North America, largely owing to the vegetation covered by forests. And however, stabilized dunes occur throughout the region, including in Quebec and Ontario, which is the gap we're looking at, with land use associated with these deposits that includes resource extraction, forestry, agriculture, residential recreation, and protected areas. So the objective of this project is to map the occurrence of the eolian deposits in northeastern North America, to assess those deposits in relation to deglaciation, lake marine recession, and past climate change, document the type of land uses going on in these areas because that's also largely missed, and then to develop a database of the physical and geochemical properties and ages of these deposits. Trying to flick, there we go. Project members, several members within the GSC, but I like to focus on our external collaborators. External collaborators from various universities, both in Canada and in the United States, and partnerships with the Ontario Geological Survey, Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources, and with the Quebec federal government official geologist as well, consulting archaeologists that have helped us with this Naskapi project, which they've led, and now a task sharing agreement with Michał Wopak in Poland, which I'll elaborate on further. Oops, there we go. So I'm going to focus, because the project has been ongoing, and I think the science achievements are going to be coming mainly in the next year. I'm going to focus on the accomplishments and the outputs that we've made in addition to the partnerships in this project in this year. So as I said, we really had an unknown region to work with. So we gathered the LiDAR data from Ontario, Quebec, and New York State through three separate web portals, brought those together, and in collaboration with Ontario Geological Survey, and who provided us with unpublished results in terms of identification of aeolian deposits in Ontario. And in the Quebec government, mapping has been well developed there. So we were able to bring in the mapping results for Quebec. And in New York, we had collaboration, particularly with the University of Potsdam and Plattsville, in order to create the figure that you see on the left. And in particular, when it came to mapping in Quebec, we actually remapped all the polygons. We went through and we verified and checked to be certain that what we were looking were essentially like you see on the right, which are dune fields through the region. So we rejected a number of areas. We added considerably more than were found in the original mapping schemes. So again, then on the left would be an established product after 2 years of work on mapping throughout northeastern North America. Oops. In addition, for the last 2 years and going forward to this summer, we've been field sampling. We've been to 60 sites across the region so far. It may not seem like much, but it's a lot of work. I showed the scale bar there in 500 kilometers, so it's a lot of traveling around. And we've been able to develop a database now for grain size and mineralogy. We're also archiving those samples. Figure you see on the right is typical of the sort of aeolian deposit that you see. They're well sorted, typically fine-grained sands. They have a unique grain size distribution, quite suitable for various construction purposes and also technological extraction, and can also have unique mineralogy. We've collected 52 samples for optical dating, which means that we're assessing the last time these sand grains were exposed to sunlight, which provides us a means for understanding when the dunes were active and when they last stabilized. So for the stars that you see on the left, we're developing a chronology to understand the timing of when these dunes transition from being active to then being stabilized and typically forested. At all the sites we've gone to, we've documented the range of land use, and I just want to highlight 4 of the most common types of land use that we see. The top left is cranberry production, which is extensive throughout the southern St. Lawrence region. And on the right is the blueberry production, which is extensive within the Saguenay. Together, the commercial operations bring in a revenue of about $500 million per year. And those productions are almost entirely reliant on aeolian sands. The figure on the bottom left is softwood lumber, and you'll see a specific extraction through a swath, and that's the extraction of the pine trees. On the sides of those are spruce trees, which are left. So you'll often see targeted extraction on aeolian sands because they're well drained. We'll have species of interest to softwood lumber industry. And on the bottom right is a mixed use of forestry and agriculture, where commonly the areas are forested and then they're being cleared for, in this case, for cranberry production. And yes, it's good. In terms of outputs, with the mapping results that we've done, we identified about, well, as it says, more than 3,000 new dune areas, which is about 15,000 square kilometers within northern North America. This has been posted to Open Maps. And on the right-hand side, you see the distribution of aeolian deposits throughout North America. The yellow is what we knew, and the red is the new dunes that we've mapped, which represents about 10%. So it's an increase in the knowledge of the existence of these windblown deposits through North America. And in addition to the mapping of the deposits, we've also undertaken an examination of the orientation of the dunes. So what you see here, these arrows, is a summary of the orientation of the dunes, which represents past wind directions. And so the red arrows are those that are showing a broad westerly flow, that is from west to east. And the blue clusters of blue arrows are what you see as past winds that were flowing from east to west. So what we're doing here is compiling this to understand the changing wind directions that were commensurate with the recession of the Laurentide ice sheet and the introduction of the warm Holocene climates. So in particular, we see essentially a cold climate, anticyclonic circulation associated with the Laurentide ice sheet as it recedes, and when it collapses, the introduction of that warm Holocene climate that comes in. That's a particular interest of investigation in terms of the paleoenvironmental conditions, and that will be a significant component of the science going forward that we're working on. And as a note, I'd just like to thank Francois Letourneau for assisting us with publishing both the wind directions and the mapping of dune fields to Open Maps. We have a number of scientific publications coming forward in the next year, but this last fiscal year, we published one article in Albany, which is south of the Adirondacks in New York. And this particular site is it's a preserve where they undertake regular annual prescribed burning in order to maintain what you see here, which is a scrub oak and pitch pine forest environment. And the burning that goes on here is an attempt to mimic and continue the indigenous burning of landscapes that went on within these environments that maintain these types of ecosystems. The reason they do this today is to maintain and boost the biodiversity, and in particular endangered species on sandy terrain. So the question was, has past burning or this burning, will this induce aeolian erosion under, say, arid conditions, and what's going on? So our study was to investigate the origins and the past activity of this particular protected area. Our findings showed that the original dunes were formed almost 13,000 years ago, stabilized by 10,000 years ago, and that continual burning has not reactivated dunes, but it does maintain the biodiversity of the region. In terms of communications and outreach, we made a presentation at the Albany Pine Bush Preserve in July of this last year, which was well represented by the community and appreciated by the preserve director. We also had an outreach at the Science Expo, which is giving us an overview then of this view of past winds and the types of landscapes and land use that we see throughout northeastern North America and other parts of Canada. Again, on the bottom left, you'll see you'll see burning here. This was burning that was done on the Suffield military base to, again, look at how this might reactivate dunes and how it affects biodiversity. That's me, and I'm not burned. Fortunately, they're very safe there. We had produced a final report for the Naskapi First Nations in association with the archaeological work that we've been doing in that region. The reason that this has been going on is because it is a proposed protected area and of significant cultural interest. And so we had collaborated with the archaeologists that were lead on that project in order to assist with the geoscience and understanding the past timing and history of occupation of that region. We gave a presentation in Wrocław, Poland in the spring of 25, and that has provided an opportunity to share our key findings with the Europeans and also to develop a task sharing agreement at the University of Wrocław. Two outreaches that we had that were internal to NRCan that I thought were quite useful was one, a Simply Science article that illustrated our use of the geoscience contributions to tracing the Naskapi Nation's history in the region and the contribution to the archaeology. And the second one was, which you may have seen for Thanksgiving and maybe for Christmas, was how the dune sands helped contribute to the cranberry industry on the south shore of the St. Lawrence. So here you see, which you might find a little bit in disbelief, is sand that is being sprayed or deposited over cranberry fields, because in order for the cranberries to regenerate and maintain their production, you actually need to put sand continually on the field. So they do this in the winter not to harm the plants in order to maintain production. So in fact, they stockpile aeolian sands in order to distribute it and maintain the production of their cranberry fields for decades. near the end now, and in terms of partnerships, as I mentioned, we have a task sharing agreement now with the University of Wrocław. It's permitting an exchange of our geochronological, geochemical, and sedimentological data and our analytical methods, and also enables us to share with them unpublished and archival data. And the reason for this is because the situation in Poland very similar to that we have in Canada, and so that collaboration has been meaningful in a lot of ways. And also, we've been able to benefit a lot with the shared collaboration we've had with the Ontario Geological Survey, particularly with Riley Mulligan, George Gow, and Andrea Marich, which has provided an opportunity for adding to our chronological database. And as I mentioned, the morphology of the dunes in terms of the mapping, which is supporting an upcoming publication in geomorphology, which we hope to have submit in this next year. Planned activities for the coming year will be to publish our results, as I mentioned, in geomorphology, complete what I believe will be all of the field work for the project, completing the last of the sampling for physical properties and chronology. We've been accepted, big relief, for a presentation both at CANQUA and the International Conference on Eolian Research. Which going forward, we'll be able to provide more of a scientific and contribution to next year to show our results. And lastly, we have a paper, another paper that will be published in Eolian Research on cold climate dunes, and that is being edited, guest edited with our with Mikael Welpuck, who I mentioned is part of the task sharing agreement. Contact information for Stephen Wolfe. And I will stop sharing. Thank you very much.